In the morning we built the city. In the afternoon walked through its streets. Evening saw us leaving. We wandered through our days as if they would never end. We wandered through our days as if they would never end. All of us imagined we had endless time to spend. We hardly saw the crossroads and small attention gave to landmarks on the journey from the cradle to the grave. Cradle to the grave.
Right guys, welcome to the Black Country History Hunter. We're in Brierley Hill, just in front of the Briar Rose. Today we're going to have a look through the town, look at some of the buildings, do a little bit of history if we can and where we can, start this end of the town and work our way down to the church. There's some history coming up that might trigger some people. It's a bit horrific, some of the stuff that went on here in the early days, but it's part of our history and we're going to talk about it. The Briar Rose. As everybody knows, Briar, lay, the lay being a clearing in the woods, Anglo-Saxon term, and Briar being a rose or a sweet rose, which is depicted behind us in this lovely statue. I've looked at it myself and I wonder, is it a briar rose clearing, a clearing where the briar roses have took from the Saxon times, or is it a clearing of briar roses? I think it might be a place where maybe even earlier than that they cleared for barrows of some type, maybe Iron Age, before the Romans, before the Saxons. Just like they did at Barrow Bank, they cleared it for some kind of barrow activity and it stayed cleared. The roses took over during the Roman and the Saxon period. That's my personal feeling on it. Whatever the reason was, the Briar Hill become a place where people came to meet for markets. It's kind of within the area of several markets within the towns, like your Dudley, Stourbridge, Wordsley. You've got the Stour Brook and the Stour Valley where most of the habitation was. But they were coming up here to meet, and in later years there was coal. We're going to talk about that later. Let's start with the Danilo cinema. Let's go down there now. Right guys, here we are, the Danilo. So 1936 it was put up at a time when entertainment like this was really big. It's always been big in Brierley Hill, entertainment. It's kind of a boom town, you know. In the early days, imagine it being like a Wild West. There was not very much law, we'll learn that later. But so yeah, the Danilo. You've got a beautiful old cinema. Inside was absolutely stunning, I've been told. In 1936, when they came to open the place, there was two people meant to be there. George Formby was meant to open it, and also the Earl of Dudley. Now, I've read stories that the Earl of Dudley was actually held up by the Wallers, or just by the Round Oak, because basically the streets were thronged with people coming to see George Formby, not to see the Earl of Dudley. So George Formby arrived. He was meant to go in round the back, but being George, he decided to go in through the front, and he wanted to meet all the people that came to see him. There was a massive hooray. He eventually got onto the stage, and the people were all sitting there quiet, waiting for George to appear. Pokes his head round the corner, turned out nice again. Roar up, everybody starts laughing. The whole place erupts with laughter. Such a character. A few years before the war, don't forget. 4 years later, he'd be strumming his ukulele for the war effort. But yeah, an amazing place. Right guys, so we're filming the Brierley Hill video, as you know. I've come over to the cinema, which we're looking at the moment, and somebody's broken in, guys. It's very sad, and after I film this little bit here, I'm going to notify the authorities that the door's been broken. We didn't break it, I just saw it open, and I've come in to have a look to show you guys. This might be the last chance we get to look before it gets changed into whatever it's going to be. So the walls are stripped back, guys. Can you see the beautiful, lovely ironwork there? 1936, guys, it was built, and you know, as I've said, George Formby came and he performed in here, guys. This would have been the stages there. Look where everybody was watching, and the uproar came. There's some gallery there. Look up there, some galleries. So yeah, the amazing man himself, Mr. George Formby, came and performed here. And there's the back of the stage, guys. You can imagine him coming off onto stage in here. So this is where Paul Robeson sang on that fateful day, guys. Paul Robeson was an absolute legend of an African-American. His father was born to slavery, and he ran away at the age of 14 and studied to become a lawyer. He taught his son, Paul, to become a person that understood the rights of the African-Americans in America and also the working class. So he had a lot of connection with the British, he had a lot of connection with the black country. The working class guys, anybody being persecuted, Paul Robeson was there for them. Look at that. Absolutely stunning to see it. But yeah, it's all been stripped out. So for once, you can see some of the original wall and some of the original steelwork that went into this building. Steel that probably come from local firms. So let's go upstairs. I ain't going to spend too long in here because I want to carry on through Brierley Hill. Wow! Look at this 1930s window. This is proper Poirot, you know, just at the end. This should be made into a window again. They should take the glass out. They should clean the glass and make it a window again. They really should. Such a shame that that is not a window. That should be made into a window again, shouldn't it? Look at the air duct. Wow, brickwork there. Okay. Oh, wow. So this is one of the places where you would come to watch the stage show. And there's the stage, guys. You can imagine George Formby down there, or a number of people. The seats up here. Look, you still see where the seats were locked in. And look at that there, the radiator again. Wow. Oh, look at the projection room. Look at that. Here's the projection room, all red brick. This could be something out of the... Oh, wow. You know what? Look at that door, original wooden door. Absolutely stunning to see that. Look at them old fuses there. Ah, man, this is what I'd live for. And this is it. So this is where all those films would have been projected from. The man up here would have been doing his job. No smoking in here, guys, look. Doing his job, the projection man. Some of the fuses there and some of the equipment to do with the pulley from the original stage, and there they go up into the roof almost. So that would have been pulleys and different ways of pulling the scenery. Yes, the scenery up and down, the electric coming in there, look. Scenery, and here, beautiful pulley. So we walk in the boards, and here's the winding system. So this would have been used to take the pulleys and all the different scenery up and down. And this is, oh wow, this is British engineering at its best. You know, this stuff still moves. It's been in here over 100 years. It's not been used as a cinema for a good 60 years. And not for a stage cinema anyway. Look at the cord. Can you see the cord? Wow, and the cord's still solid. On with the video. See what else we can find out about Brierley Hill. Behind me there, we've got the P&R services, or were the P&R services. They're basically a garage in the 60s and the 50s. I think the 40s, he was an ironmonger, Fred Poole, the man who started it. And then later he came back from a Canada trip, I believe, and then he started this PR services. He would offer you good terms on motorbikes. Do it better with a Lambretta was something that was put in the cinemas behind me. But yeah, so he gave out bikes at various prices. There's one here for 29 quid. And it's a decent little bike, actually, and you can see the advert for it as well. So, yeah, for 29 quid, you could get yourself a bike and you get on good terms. But, yeah, P&R services, that's now gone, obviously. One last one before we walk on. I'm going to walk up to the town now and carry on with the history. One of the stars that came here, which is very poignant for me, and very poignant for people of the Black Country, and for Wales, actually, for miners in general. Not just miners then, obviously, this was much later than the mining community, but the feeling held. A man called Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson was basically a baritone from America. He was an American football player, he was a lawyer, he was a very intelligent man. Went through the times in America where there was a lot of injustices, and he understood the strife of the miners. So he came over to Britain on a few occasions, and he sang in this place on one occasion, which was a high point really for this place, when Paul Robeson sang, guys. So yeah, I'm gonna walk up now, leave you with the Paul Robeson song as I walk up, and we'll start again at the next spot.
And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green? And was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pasture seen?
Right, folks, we haven't got to walk far. So now we're walking over the road into Brierley Hill High Street proper. And before I carry on and show you the Elms, I want to show you an area there. So there was a pub there called the Fox and Goose. So it's one of the earliest pubs in the area. So it goes back to 1800 maybe. And obviously part of Level Street, which is to the side of us here. Level Street, the name of Level Street, actually, looking back into it, I've discovered that I used to think the level was named so because of the level crossing, but that's a fallacy. The level was named after an underground stream or underground tunnel that was used to divert water. You call it a gully or a drift mine. So it basically took water away from the mines before they had access to steam engines. So they dug so deep on the level area in the 1700s that they had to get rid of the water. And it ran right the way down to Dennis Park. You can see here the line it would have gone, and you can actually see on this aerial photograph, on this LiDAR image, you can see where it would have actually come out, and it's still there today in that little bit of a park area. This is where I believe it came out, and it flooded out. And years after that, they were still discovering it. In the 1860s, they were still breaking into parts of this old level stream that ran underground to divert water. They were still digging this stuff up, you know, in the 1860s, guys. So really, it's part of our history, and it needs to be remembered. So yeah, the Fox, an old, very old pub. It was for sale in 1836, and you can see there some of the stuff that was there. You know, you've got the brew houses, you've got the stables, you've got pigsties. It's all there. Right then, let's cross over. Let's go talk about the Elms. So we're crossing the main road now. Where I am now, there would have been buildings behind me. A stationer's, I believe. The police station there now is over there. And this actually extended out further as well, this corner did. A beautiful lamppost there, by the way. If you look at this picture here, on that corner, or where I'm standing there was once a massive ornamental lamppost, huge ornamental lamppost, gas-driven, absolutely stunning. It's gone now. Whatever happened to it, I don't know. It's long gone. But yeah, what a beautiful image that is. And there you go, Level Street, guys. Onto Brierley Hill High Street. There's the old Midland Bank over the road. But we're going to start with the Elms. So, just there was the Elms. So right in front of the police station there, guys, there used to be a building called the Elms. You see it on this 1860s map. The Elms was a very old house. There is a history of the area, and it actually says that, well, not a history of the area, a man called Mr. Meredith in the 1826, 1827 described how many houses there was between the pub by the Whimsy Inn, right at the bottom, and the Elms. And he described how many houses, I think it was like 500 or something like that. But yeah, so there weren't many houses then. That was in 1826. That tells us that house was there in 1826, guys. So you can see this beautiful image here, which was taken in 1890. Now, this image, I believe, was taken of the Harris family. The Harrises were part of Harris and Pearson, which was a brick kiln company. And they were very big in the area. You can see the company here as well. And they had money, so they bought the Elms. And they lived there for many, many years. So in 1890, one of the members of the Elms family, a daughter, married somebody from the Laurels, another big house up the road, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I think her name was Freeth. Anyway, we'll speak about that later. So carrying on with the Elms. So the Harrison family had it right up until the end, I believe, because at the very end, there was a woman called Miss Lizzie, or what people called Miss Lizzie. Now, Miss Lizzie was basically a very strange woman. She would literally stay in the house and not come out. She was a rich recluse. I'm not 100% sure she was a Harris, but I believe he had a few daughters. She was known for giving out clothes to the poor, so she'd have queues of people outside the house waiting for handouts. So this would be on a Friday, and people without abode would line up to get their money or food handouts or clothes handouts. She'd even send some to tailors to be tailored. There was a rumour in the area that she was horribly disfigured. That wasn't true. One of the people who actually tended to her towards the end of her life had seen her on one or two occasions, even though he worked there. And on those one or two occasions, she was quite an elderly woman, grey hair and quite normal looking. So yes, the Peter Harris himself died in 1908, and he was 57, and he died in that house over the road. And I think this is Peter Harris in this jib and cart here, in this photo. Beautiful photo there. We'll move on from the Elms now. Just before I go, guys, I'll just tell you about a stonemason that lived up here on Level Street called Mr. Griffiths. But yeah, so there was actually a stonemason here in 1870. And he actually built the fountain. We'll talk about the fountains later, but for now, we'll carry on, folks, through the town. Right, so the next stop's going to be the Turks Head, guys. It's changed a lot in the years gone by. So yeah, in 1972, they decided to knock this amazing, beautiful building down and build this monstrosity. I don't know how you feel about the buildings that were built in the 70s, but I don't agree with them. I think they were terrible. Absolutely stunning building, the Turks Head. And in front of it had a lovely lamp. Can you see that lamp there, guys? Sticking out there. Absolutely stunning, stunning building. So it was a gas light out the front, and it was going to be also a tram stop. So you can see a photo here where the trams are passing by and passengers would have gone in and out. And on the front of this picture, it says tram car waiting rooms. So again, a very early pub. But yeah, you can see it here on an aerial photograph, just about. And then you can see on this 1860s map, and you can see how the two back up onto each other, the Fox and Goose and the Turks Head. They back up onto each other, and they could have shared the stables. Now, there's the thing about the stables. So basically, there was a farrier called Barker in 1890. You can see his advert here. Now, if you look very closely on this photo, you can see on this earlier photo, around 1890, you can see that it says Barker. So we know that he worked there for a long time. And then it went on to be Cheadle, which is on the later photo. But yeah, so there would have been inquest holds at the Turks Head, all kinds of things like that. One of the inquests would have been 1889, was a trap death or a trap cart death. So somebody was killed by a cart, and you can see that here, quite horrific. So yeah, there was a history done in 1836, and that tells you how the town used to carry on down past Derry Street. It didn't actually go the way it goes now, by the promenade and down the hill. So yeah, the Dog and Partridge, very old pub, guys. One of the original pubs. If you look at the frontage there and you look at this 1860s map, you can see that it's changed very little, very little. It's still the beautiful pub it is today, and they've done very little to it. And you can see on the 1860s map here, clearly defined. Strange thing about it is, nowadays, it's not seen as a bad pub, but it's like, you know, it's not a posh pub. But in 1944, there was an article about a Walter Lancelot. And Walter was basically a landlord. He was a landlord for 39 years. And he was basically very strict. So he took the pledge at 7, he said, which is not drinking. Never drunk a drop in his life, only tea, but he ran this pub. He wouldn't allow blondes in. He wouldn't allow card playing. He wouldn't allow swearing. He wouldn't allow gambling. He wouldn't allow dart playing. He was literally, you went there to read the Bible, you know, is that like severe. Yeah. And it was a place of meeting. I believe this was an engineer's pub, because we have here, 1867, we have men that were meeting up to show goodwill towards a fellow engine driver that had been sacked and actually jailed for somebody dying in a pit, and he was blamed for it. Now, engines were hard things to control, and they all stuck together and said, look, it's not his fault, he did his best, sort of thing. So yeah, the Dog and Partridge guide, there it is. What's next? We're going up Pearson Street for the Laurels. Laurels, again, a big house. There was a directory or a history of the area written in about 1836. And in that history, it said that the house where the Laurels is today, there used to be a big pit mound, which was quite unsightly. The Laurels is still there today in spirit, and it's still there today, really. So we're going to have a look at the building. I don't know what it is today, but there it is. There's the Laurels in all its glory. But yeah, there was a time when up this Pearson Street, there was a drill hall, a labour exchange opposite the drill hall, a lot of history, hell of a lot of history. And the Laurels was one of the places that had a drinking fountain. So there was 3 in all. One at Round Oak, which was called, I believe, just the fountain. One at the Laurels, which was called the Ladies' Fountain, or the Ladies. And then one at the top, which is at the new police halls, which we'll talk about later, or the police public hall, which was called the Commissionaire's Drinking Fountain. So yeah, you can see in 1869, they had a ceremony, and they all opened them up. The Earl of Dudley came, it was big fanfare. This was public subscription. Everybody wanted these drinking fountains, it was needed. Cholera had been a big problem in the area, and yeah, so they needed these. And they had them. And one of them was at the base of the Laurels as it is today. In 1876, the Grand Foresters had a picnic there, and they played games, as you can see here, like Aunt Sally, where you throw like sticks at a head of an old lady or an old nana. You know, really strange games. And a merry-go-round, which would have been steam, I imagine, at the time. Merry-go-round, which would have been steam. As many years ago, I had a conversation with a gentleman that's left us now. He's gone, Freddie Hawkins. He was a legend. I want to do a video on him, eventually, with the permission of his family. In 1928, the Laurels decided to sell the land and put a cinema up. Eventually, the cinema became the Odeon, which is the first Odeon in the world. Well, later on it became the Odeon. But for many times I saw Mr. Hawkins up here, he said to me, you can see the building, you can see the cinema. Now, I hadn't done the research, but I kept looking over there and walking around the building and thinking, where's this sloping roof? He says it's part of the cinema. I could not see it for the life of me. And then if you look at this picture from 1931, an aerial view, you can see the cinemas clearly and how big it was. And the slope I was looking for was the wrong angle. I was expecting it to slope up towards the front of the shops, but it doesn't. They've put it adjacent. So they've literally put the building, as you can see on they've literally put it adjacent to the road. So the slope is a different slope. And that's the corner he's talking about. It's that. That there is an original piece of the cinema. And it gradually slopes upwards. Only gradually slopes upwards, but it does slope upwards. And it's definitely part of the cinema. Yeah, so behind me here was the drill hall, guys. We know I've done a little video before about the first day at war. So the men, including my granddad, I've been told, my granddad, my dad's dad, used to come here for drill practice in like the 1920s and 30s. During the war, men of Brierley Hill came to this drill hall to actually sign up, and they marched from here in the rain, down the street to Dudley, and then on to the front. You know, and a lot of them didn't come back, did they? And them on that monument up there. But yeah, so we're gonna carry on now through the town and on to the next part of the history of Brierley Hill, guys. So the Star is another early pub. So 1830s again, it could have been earlier, and it was a hotel. It had a big stable again. All of them did. They were coach houses. They had to have stables. They had to have places for horses. You can see the map, 1870. Beautiful map of it that used to be there. Okay, it's where Home Bargains is today, basically. There were a few auctions held there in 1849, so we know how old the place was. Today, it's where Home Bargains stopped. The pub, the Star Hotel. Next door to it was the first post office. This is where it gets a bit complicated. Just behind me here was the post office, guys. So basically, there was a bit of a problem with the post in the beginning. In 1836, Brierley Hill was seen as a post area. So it had a post office, so you could go there and buy your bits and bobs, you know, and probably take letters there. But it wasn't a postal town, so you couldn't send a letter directly to Brierley Hill. This was a problem, especially as the time went by. They eventually decided that actually Brierley Hill was growing really quick. It was a boom town, guys, a very big boom town. So they decided they deserved a post office. Places like King Swinford didn't have half the population in their town, and they was a postal town. It was catching up with Dudley for population, and yet it didn't have a postal town. So in around 1849, it started to push for being a postal town. Now, in 1870, and I believe in 1836, the post office was here. It was here, guys. And it was here for a long time, until eventually, in around 1875, 1880, they moved it to down there where it's Victoria Royal now. So yeah, 1849, they decided they wanted a postal town. By 1851, it had become a postal town, but they hadn't yet got what they wanted, which was a proper building. The coach house, I believe, was used at the back of the Star Inn for the post as well. So you'd have the postal coaches coming down up to the Star Inn, using their stables. So it kind of was a bit of ad hoc, you know. They were literally... Some people say that this is a town that doesn't belong as a town. It was kind of pushed together. And it was pushed together in the heat of the Industrial Revolution. In the early days, there was no police force. There was one copper for the King Swinford area, and this was a big area. It was growing. So in the 1830s and 40s, the people of the town got together and they decided we're going to fix this problem ourselves. So they basically come up with something called the patrollers. These were men and women of the town, or men of the town, that took it in turns to patrol. And if you couldn't patrol, you had to put somebody in your place to patrol and stop these crimes. And that's an amazing piece of history, isn't it? 1830s, 1840s, until the police force grew as what it is today. But, yeah, and some of the criminals at the time, as we know in video I've done before, 3 people were hung for stealing, and they were actually buried back in the church. Now, at later times, this was in the 1830s, 40s again, later on they were buried in the confines of the prison. But on some cases in the early executions, they allowed people to be buried in the church of their choosing. So 3 are buried in the St Michael's, and some of the gangs, they would hide their contraband in the churchyard, so there'd be vaults. There's still vaults there today. They'd push the big slab off, and they'd hide the stuff in there. There's one case where in about 1840, there's a school teacher, and he's got a big pork ham, big piece of pork, pig, and he salted it and put it in his cellar. It's nicked. 3 or 4 kids nick it, take it away. They find it in this graveyard, underneath this gravestone. You know, so little stories like that really do interest me. So yeah, we're going to carry on now to the next one, and we're going to talk a little bit about the wake soon. Right, another pub that was opposite the post office was the Castle. Now, I don't know much about the Castle. A quick shout out to Smart and Simple Repairs, guys. Today I came out without a cable, and the main man in there fixed me up, so if it wasn't for the main man, I wouldn't be filming this today. Beautiful old building he's got there as well. So there's Jones Bros. The clock, it's a real pity. I'm not going to go on about it now, there's a pigeon living in it. But it's a real pity the way it is, and there's too many causes in Brierley Hill that need help, you know, to be dwelling on just one. Before I carry on down the town, I'm going to mention the Drapers quickly. Nicholson's, guys. Absolutely stunning Nicholson's. Really old Drapers, all girls. And the window at the top was meant so that the light would get in. Now, there was a thing just not recently where the fish shop next door owned it, and somebody was a tenant and he smashed the window. They didn't know. They replaced the window with a PVC window, and they're going in a bit of trouble. But to all their credit, Zach's is a great chippy. I love Zach's. I'm always eating in there. To their credit, they actually got somebody in and done the window properly. So now we have a real nice window, and I see they've had it painted now as well. So it's looking original again, guys. There you go. There's Nicholson's Drapers, 1933, old pick, with the many girls outside, the girls and Milners outside. And look at that beautiful doll's house in the window there. Absolutely amazing. So there's a 1923 advert here for Christmas. Come and get your stuff from the good old Nicholson's. Brilliant stuff. Right, so next we're going to go on to the Golden Eagle. Now, I can't find any pictures of the Golden Eagle, but if you look at this image here, you can just about see it had like a cinema-like front to it. It was like a strange front, and that front stuck out, and it was there for a long time. There's a picture of 1890 showing it, and then again, it's been redone in an Art Deco style around 1920. And it's a beautiful place. Yeah, and there was a sale there at the Golden Eagle, as you can see, 1869. The Delph Ironworks has been sold there, and that's an interesting article. Right, guys, so walking down now, there was a shop next to the main affair, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is the town hall. I'm going to quickly talk about the building next door, which was Cartwright's. Would have been where that lady's coming out now. Carry on, mate. Black Country History Hunter. Just talking about the town's history. There was a place called Cartwright's here at one point.
Yeah.
Very old. And the town hall, do you remember the town hall?
Yeah, mate, yeah.
You do?
Lots of places around.
Did you ever go to the town hall?
Yeah.
Was you a Ted?
No, when I get old.
See what I mean? I'm going to talk about the Teds. Is it true they used to put hooks and razor blades in their collars? So if you grabbed them, you cut your hands and throw you off the balcony? No. But we're going to come on to the town hall now. Cartwright's was next door. The town hall. What a place. Now, the town hall. The town hall was just there, basically, where the library is. It was basically just here, guys. So we had the beautiful building with its tower clock. There's difference about when it was built. Now, it was called the Public Hall before, and I found... Is there anybody in there? No. I found actual evidence that it goes back to way before when people say it is. They say 1874. Now I found evidence 1868. So basically, way before they said it opened, it was the public hall. And in 1874, I believe the town hall purchased it. I've seen various meetings of the council where they discussed purchasing it for the people to put a library in, which is what they did in 1875. They put a library in. Until it moved down to the one that we've done a video on before. But yeah, so the library was put in. Amazing building. Early days, it had Bible meetings there. So yeah, it became known as the Queen's Hall, did the town hall. And in the 50s, people like Keith Meredith used to come here and see bands. We had Joe Brown and the Brothers, and John Duncan and the Bluegrass Boys, and also somebody that went on to become infamous for his crimes, a Mr. Paul Raven. Now, as we know, he went on to become the infamous Guy Glitter. But yeah. So they all played here. I've heard stories of how they'd put razor blades in their lapels. They'd wear Slim Jim ties, the Teddy Boys. They'd wear creeper shoes and they'd dance the creep. And they'd listen to all kinds of music, but it was mostly rock and roll. Early days of rock and roll. So yeah, it's interesting to hear those stories. And I imagine that hall and the history. Somebody actually said, there's an article in the 60s, how that they preferred the old hall to the new Civic. They preferred that. Because the new Civic, they found to be a bit white and boring and, you know, a bit too bright for them. They like these old places where it was creepy floorboards, it was rich with the history of the past, and you could smell it, I imagine, when you went in. It had these beautiful stalls, as you can see inside here, and you can see when them taking it down in 1967. You know, you can see them ripping it out, and these beautiful, like, galleries around it where all this history happened, guys. And people would get thrown over those galleries, apparently, by the Teds. And like I said, they'd wear hooks and razor blades in their lapels. 1869, there was a concert held there, and people, all the great and good of Brierley Hill, came to see these 100 singers, choir, sing this song, and they sang one by Handel. And I often think of it, you know, Brierley Hill at that point was lit up with the fires of industry, the coal, the smoke. History was everywhere, and it was being dug out of the ground. Brierley Hill was being turned inside out, and this concert was happening. While that was happening, on that cold November night, they walked into the hall with all their beautiful dress, top hats, and they sat down and they watched this song, Handel. And as we walk down now to the next place, I just want to show you a little bit of drone footage of the area and play a little bit of that song that was played that night, and just see if you can get a feeling for it, because it certainly touches me. Right, guys, so you saw that then, absolutely epic. Barclays Bank now in passing. We're going up to the market. There's where the new tram's going to go in. Interesting to see that the old tram lines were being brought out in the 20s, you know. Hello. How are you? You okay? Good to see you. Beautiful. There we go. There's the market there, guys. So, yeah, it was a covered market by the 30s. Right, so I'm just outside the market now, guys. You can see from above 1860s map that the market wasn't covered until 1930s. Here we've got a fishmonger in the 1860s that was plying his trade there. It would have been an open market. And this is where we start talking about the weight, guys. So the market's been here for a long time. 2 markets in the town. One we're going to talk about later, which is over there, the Horseshoe Market, and this market here. So I think the markets have been here since about the 1830s, probably earlier. But whenever they started selling stuff, whether it's rural or not, they put the markets in. So I want to talk about the wake. So the wakes were held eventually behind this market because they got so big they couldn't contain them within the markets. But there was a time when the markets held the wakes. Now, it wasn't just the markets that held the wakes, the pubs held the wakes. And these wakes were absolutely barbaric in the beginning. So a wake is basically a celebration of St. Michael's Day, which was the church's day. 29th of September, when the church was founded. Now, on this day, up to 3 bulls were baited. Absolutely abhorrent. You know my feelings about cruelty to animals, but we need to speak about it. So, they'd bait these bulls, tie them around the neck with leather and a rope, and they'd throw Staffordshire Bull Terriers at them to fight. And these Staffordshires would get knocked up in the air, and it was horrific. The jaw would be ripped out, the tongues would be ripped out. There's an article here, you can see somebody complaining in the 1830s about the sport. 1835, it was banned. But for some time, because we're so much in the middle of nowhere, it carried on, guys. They carried on baiting bulls. We'll go through. We've got to go through to the other side. There we go. So these stalls have been here for a long time, some of these. Very old stalls. I hope they don't change that. I hope they keep this wooden effect. I really do. It'd be a shame if they tried to change them. Sorry, look. Because it's still... I hope they keep all these ribs as well and the openness of the market. Where's the upstairs? There was an upstairs, I can see it. Do you remember the old gypsy upstairs that used to say, tell your fortunes? So we're walking through now, I can smell beautiful incense. Yeah, lovely. 1930s, guys, it was built. Absolutely stunning to see it still operating today with these lovely old heaters above us. And before that, this was basically an open market. Would have had stalls either side, and there's an aerial view here. Well, an aerial picture, 1924, where you can see on the back there's a fair. Now, I think that fair there is part of the wake in 1924. Now, during that wake, they actually had an incident where one of the people visiting the wake, there was lions there apparently, so people would bring animals, zoos would turn up, circuses, And on this occasion, there were lions. So this gentleman, being brave in 1924, at this spot, at the back of the market, decided he wanted to get in with the lion. And he had a bet with everybody that he'd get in with this lion. And they took the bet. And then this gentleman actually went up to the lion cage, you know, and the bloke said, "The man-eaters." And he got in, he stood there, pulled out a cigarette, lit it. The lion's come in front of him and he stroked one. Stayed there for a minute, smoked a few drags, and got back out. He got his bet, he won his bet. But they all believed he was going to be it. But that's like the kind of characters that existed back then, you know. These characters don't exist now. They do, but they're few and far between. Right, so you can see in this 1924 picture there's a ride. Now that ride, I think, is this one advertised here. Now, there were early mechanical rides, you know, that went on to become like the roundabouts and the merry-go-rounds. But this is an early version of it, and I think it would have been a steam version, if I'm right. Pat Collins would have been a Pat Collins ride. So anyway, before the wake started to be here, it was here before then. I think it grew so big during the late 1700s, early 1800s. The wake became really big, but it became really big for the wrong reasons. They would bait bulls during the wake. So on the 29th of September, which was St Michael's Day, the wake every year was a huge deal. They'd come from all around the area: Stourbridge, Cayford, Wordsley, Dudley, sometimes Birmingham, for this wake. They'd bait 3 bulls. The tradition of Sunday roast, beef on a Sunday, probably comes from that wake, because after the baiting of the bulls were dead, the meat being tenderised by the jaws of the dogs, it would be sold to the customers or given away to the customers as roast beef. So these cows, they'd be stolen from areas around and they'd be used for baiting. The dogs were trained to creep up really low to the ground. The lower to the ground, the better, because then the horns couldn't get underneath. They'd cork the horns of the bull, so it couldn't cause too much damage to the dog, but the dogs would be turned right up into the air, and that was part of the spectacle for the people. They'd like to see it. Bull baiting had been around for a long time by then. It wasn't by no means new. Queen Elizabeth I, she was the first one that tried to bring it forward as a big sport, and she actually, when dignitaries came from abroad, she'd actually give them a show of bull baiting. Also bears, guys. They baited one bear on no. Now bears, they would travel round town to town on different occasions, and they'd come for the wake. The Bell Inn is where they'd take the bear. Now, we're talking about the wake now, but we're going to the Bell Inn later. So the Bell Inn, they take the bear there, and I've got various stories about that. Stick around for that, guys, but some very sad ones, but some really not encouraging ones, but it just shows you the bear wasn't to blame, really. So yeah, so we're going to carry on walking up now. What's our next? And Chattin and Horton, there's the back of Chattin and Horton. Down the steps there, behind there, it goes into a cellar area. Now, there was a time when that was part of the basement, and it was actually used as part of the shop. So Chattin and Horton. Apparently, the shop had a really unique system inside where the money would be put into like capsules and sent around up into the upstairs, where the change would be given and set back down in like this air pneumatic system of change. So you didn't have tills downstairs, it reduced the robbery rate. Yeah, you can just about see here where the basement position was, so you can see those there. Those are what let the light in. Yeah, there you go. There's one there, and one there. And downstairs had its own department, so you can still see the top of it there. It's still here as a whole shop. One person owns all of this, apparently. And yeah, you can see it here in this beautiful picture. When it was a store, guys. Long gone now. People have memories of this, so during Christmases and stuff. Now, there's another beautiful building. The old butchers. So this beautiful facade at the top, red brick facade. This was Mason's grocery store at one point, and then it became Marsh and Baxters, then it became Walter Smith, then it became Lee Eccles, and it's shut again. But I think it's kind of kept its original bit. It's a shame, because this town was once a big meat town, a big butcher town. Where the Africa Express was, T.H Baker's, big store, big store. He bought that. He basically bought it off a guy and became T.H Baker's in 1888. But yeah, it was Edwards's before that, and above it was a dentist. And I remember the sign being on the window for dentist until they put the new PVC windows in. And there you have Stewart's and Bedazzled, which used to be Southall's, another great shop of Brierley Hill, another department store of Brierley Hill. But this is T.H Baker's. Now we're going to hopefully now pop down into the cellar, and you'll see where the original T.H Baker cellar was, if they're open. Yes, they are open. So with that, I'm going to make my entry. Hello, hello, hello. It smells beautiful in here. How are you?
All right, thanks. Yeah.
Do you mind if I pop down for 10 minutes?
Carry on, you
Thank you. What's the name of the shop? Weird and Wonderful. Guys, get yourselves in here. This is a lovely lady. I bet the book's not here, is it?
No, because we're having a move around at the minute.
Are you really?
I can't remember where it's actually...
Anyway, I'll tell him about it anyway. So basically, this lady and her husband, is it your husband? Partner. They discovered in the cellar a treasure trove of items, and one of them was this beautiful T.H Baker receipt book, and it's got all these amazing entries from Earl of Dudley and things. So I've seen it before, and I'd love to see it again. We are going to arrange another scene of it. Beautiful, all these beautiful stones here. They all mean something. So if you want to know about anything like that, come up and Weird and Wonderful. Right, and down we go. There we go. Right, let's get around this corner, down these couple of steps here. So now we're about to enter the cellar dwelling. So there were entrances at the back, as you can see on this 1860 map, which led into these cellar dwellings. Wow! And you can see there, guys, on the floor, that beautiful red tiles, part of that old cellar dwelling. So cellar dwelling, beautiful cast. We made some great cast in the UK, in the back country. And it's an old fire, and the tiles have been taken off that side, but look at these. Wow. Let's see if we can bring them in to show those tiles in. And in this room, there's plaster on the walls from when it was inhabited. And on the ceiling, you've got this beam, guys. Now, there was a big thing about pork back in the day, and they'd hang their flitches of ham. I've heard so many stories of people in the 1860s, 1840s being proud of their flitch of ham. Like you'd hang a painting on the wall now, they'd hang their ham, and that was important to them. Horsehair will be in this plaster, but if we look at this beautiful fire, guys, look at that. So this, imagine a family, 9, 10, maybe 2 or 3 families living in this one dwelling, huddled around that fire on a cold winter's night. Now I've got a surprise around the corner for you. So it's leaking in, so I'm having a bit of problem with sewage. It's not the best smell, but I'm going to come through and show you because it's well worth the show. Look at that, guys. That is an early small hearth or cooker. So it's called Artisan. I know that now. And there's this advert from 1879 where it's shown as a new product. So I think this is around the late 19th century this was put in, 1879, 1880. Absolutely stunning. And it was sold as a kind of easy to clean fire. It's still got bits of old coal and coke in it. So, you know, the last time that was fired up might have been the last day they lived in this place. Wow. Through there, again, it would have been where they got out. Red tiles, look at the wear on that step. Wow, that is 200 years of history, of misery, of joy, of Christmas, of wakes, of all these different things, people sitting on that step, standing on that step. You know, all the misery that comes with life and joy that comes with life. They all passed over that step and into this another room that is, again, bricked with quarry tiles. Again, it would have been somebody living in here. There's another fire there. So this was a multi-occupancy dwelling. And then I'll show you something else now. Look at that little nook there. They had always these little nooks in these houses. It was somewhere to put your wares. You could see there was shelving there at some point. You put your Pride stuff there, your Staffordshire dogs, bull terriers, you know, your Staffordshire pottery. Here we go. So this, I believe, is the early part, Alan, of the building. So this could be 1780s at least. It's a typical kind of drum-shaped roof, arched, which gives it strength. It's got, again, the hooks and the big hooks to put your meat on and to hang your stuff up that you don't want the rats to get. Red tiles. Before refrigeration, guys, this is the only option you had. And again, all your probably your best stuff, the port and your cheese go on there. Maybe shared by the families. It might have been used exclusively by them above. And actually, you know, they were told not to mess them below. Look at this bar here. Again, piece of old iron, probably made of round oak, used to hang meats from. It's been bricked up there at some point, so it might have carried on into the next area. Another worn tile there. Beautiful. Right, guys, what else have we got? You know, this place just keeps giving and giving. And there's another set of steps that would have led into this house from the front of Brierley Hill. So you'd come down these steps to your dwelling, your cellar dwelling. This was like in London there, you get the steps, don't you, with a gated front. Similar. These would be your steps, guys, that you come down to your cellar dwelling. The poor, very poorest people of the area. We're going to have to come through. So up these steps, through here now. Now we're going into underneath T.H Baker. Okay? And there's one door. Okay, safe room. So that there. 1880s. I think they redid it in around 1870, 1880. That is a huge door, okay? You can see outside, but there's like a mouthpiece where you'd explain who you are. Big, heavy handles. This is a door to stop you stealing all the goodies. One that side, and one here. So, and this one would have led to the outside. The steps there, look. Wow. The steps, and it looks like light. Where's that light coming from? That's weird. See through there, there's light, guys. But I've seen nothing like this on the front. This is the front, isn't it? Again, another door being held, which was T.H Baker's, jewellers. Safe room. Stop you stealing the goodies. Oh, look at that there. Like some sort of drain or sink area. Lovely to see, isn't it, guys? So this is an old cellar dwelling, used 1860s, 70s, 80s by the poor of Brierley Hill, basically, guys. This was the poorest of the poor. We're on the way out now, guys. That's another section of, like, old cellar. So that literally the next building, this is the building above us, cellar area. So it's obviously been renovated over the years and changed and stuff, but it would have originally been a vaulted cellar. Thank you. That was awesome. In the next few days, the video will be out, okay?
Bit of warning when you're coming in live.
I know, yeah.
It's like,
Woo! Never mind, you look amazing, you always do.
oh, yeah, right.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Lovely people. Support the businesses when you can, local trade. Especially people like her, she's amazing. At the Town Arms, you can see this image here. Beautiful pub. And then this lovely image again from the air. Town Arms, a very old pub. In 1870, it was up for sale. And it says in this article that it had a spirit shop, it had a 40-foot counter, beautiful smoke room, a bagatelle room, similar to snooker, but earlier on, like, you know, when you do the bowls up at Blackpool and they go in the holes, similar to that, just another form of ball game with snooker cues. Yeah, old place. It was a coach house as well, so it had stabling for coaches. The Alma, I don't know much about that. It looks like it was rebuilt at some point. But yeah, the Paradise eventually bought the Paradise. Had some good curries there. Five Ways, lovely pub. Again, not one of the first pubs in the area, but still 1850s, 60s, I'd say. Beautiful pub, known as a very rough pub in its time, I believe. Anyway, I've been told a very rough pub was the Five Ways. But obviously, I weren't around to know that myself. And we have this lovely aerial view of 1950. You know, so you can see it there clearly with its sign, the Five Ways, absolutely beautiful. Love to see that. 1878, the landlord, Thomas Blakemore, was being prosecuted for permitting drunkenness. And when a relative of mine, maybe, John Bedard in 1887, was done for obstructing the highway when he left his cart outside and went in the pub. So yeah, absolutely amazing. Over the road from that is the Horseshoe. Now this we know to be an old pub. Where Alan's standing now was once the Horseshoe. Now the Horseshoe is a very, very old pub. It was mentioned as one of the first pubs in 1836. The market was called the Boiler Works because it used to be a boiler works, I believe. Also, where the Five Ways is, next to it, there were various shops. Once, eventually it became part of Marsh and Baxters. As I say, I'm going to cover Marsh and Baxters in another video. It's too much to cover today. It's a huge part of the area. 1893, there was a billiards exhibition at the Horseshoe, which you can see here. Again, a three-ball game where you actually keep hitting each other's ball. But yeah, 1848, a man was killed by a crane at the level works, and his actual inquest was held at the Five Ways. And the area I've seen it actually called the Shambles. Now that would refer to meat. Shambell meat, something like chamallow, like shelf of meat, Saxon. But the shambles are generally medieval things, but they would have still referred to modern-day butcheries as shambles, I imagine. So yeah, at some point it was referred to as a shambles. I don't know if that connects to Marsh and Baxters or what. I don't think it does. Right. So there we go, the beautiful Horseshoe. And we're going to carry on now up the town. It's getting really windy now. It's blowing up a storm, I believe. But yeah, as we go up now, we're heading towards the new post office and the old police station. I'll show you the old fountain. So this was the Commissionaire's fountain. 1868, as you can see, made by Mr. Griffiths, who ended up living next door to the old police station, where he became a butcher as well. And then one of the daughters married the Tomlinsons and moved to Penslet. So this is missing a head off the top. But this was one of three, as I've said. There were three in 1868 that were opened by the Earl of Dudley. The round oak one, which was known as the fountain, the commissionaires, which is by the police station where we're going now, and the middle one, which is the Laurels, by the Laurel where we've been earlier. But yeah, so we're walking up the town now. The old Waldron's Bank, or the bank then Waldron's. The new post office, like I say, I'm unsure. The old post office was still down the road there in 1870 on the map, so it must be about 1880 that the new one was put in. It's a beautiful building, no denying that. 3 crowns are just patting. Again, not an ancient pub, 1930s I think, but there would have been an earlier version of that, right on the spot. I don't know why they knock them down and build them new. The old buildings to me are beautiful and they just need to be left alone. But where Farm Foods is today and where the old Concord was, used to be the amazing old police station. So like I said, in the early days of the policing, there was not many coppers about and the patrollers used to do most of the work. The town grew to such a state in the end, such a size, that it was bigger than Cayford, yet everybody was going to Cayford to hear the courts. So they played up, and in the 1850s, they ended up getting a court which was built just over the road there. You can see a lovely image of it here, and you can just about see it on this aerial photo. Absolutely amazing. So that is the court, the old court, or the old cop shop, the old cop shop. So the fountain, as I said, the Commissioner's fountain was out the front, and it was where the public entrance was to the public law courts. You can see some articles here discussing pitch and toss being persecuted there. So some lads playing pitch and toss, a game with coins that you threw on the floor. It was gambling, so they weren't allowed to do it. So in 1853, I reckon it was built around 1853. 1882, we got a case of some stealing coal, so 10-year-old, 11-year-old girls, or 11-year-old and a 10-year-old boy, sorry, was brought along by their older sister, maybe, to steal coal. So yeah, the new VR post office is there. It's a lovely old building. That's where World War I was declared, guys, in that window. I did do a video on that. But we're going to walk on now, folks. The Bell Hotel was here, opposite the old cop shop. So yeah, the Bell Hotel was just there. In 1848, there was a fireworks display for the wake here. So the fireworks, such an early version of fireworks. And in 1850, they held some of the wake on the Bell Hotel. The Bell was just here where this retro gaming is now. Only a small profile at the front, but huge at the back. Had stables again, and it was classed as a family hotel. Yeah, so in the 1850s, part of the wake again, an horrific event, the wake, but there were some pubs that didn't partake in bull baiting. They didn't partake in, you know, they were more friendly to the humane societies and more friendly to animals, and that's a great thing. So they offered different things. They offered staying on the pole, flower dipping, where you, I don't know what that is. But French staying on the pole, I think it was an oily pole. You got on the pole and you had to balance on as long as you could and walk the pole and all these fun games that didn't involve ripping animals apart, you know. I love that, I think that's great. So yeah, another old pub described as old in this article in 1838. So, you know, it's described as old then. So if it's described as old then, it could be late 1700s, easy guys. Yeah, and the Bell Hotel was knocked down in 1924, very sadly. There's the bingo wall. Marsh and Baxter's a huge part of this area behind me now. We're going to talk about Marsh and Baxter's a bit when we go up Bell Street. But yeah, we've done the courts there. And we're coming up to something that's a bit disputed now. Where I'm pointing now is the old Catholic church. The Catholic church, I believe, was built on the old pub called the Golden Lion. Now, people have doubted this. But if you look at this article here, that explains that the Catholic Church were looking to buy a piece of land from the Golden Lion to build their church. And in the end, they secured a deal. And when the deal went through, they built a church, a house for the Catholic priest to live in, and a school at the back, which is all in this 1860s picture. So it proves to me that that Golden Lion pub was actually the land that they bought in 1849, 1850. Now, the pub people say that was here was the mouth of the Nile, which I believe is that building to the left, the white building, I believe. Another pub on this line as we go down the hill, Spread Eagle. So walking down now where the lights are was the Spread Eagle. There's an image here looking up the town from 1830 from Marsh and Baxter's Park, and you can just about see it there. And on this 1860 map you can see Urinal and just another very old pub. When I said earlier about the road actually splitting off, it follows the ridge up until this point, and at this point there used to be an old milestone apparently, and then it splits down what was Derry Road, rejoins the Turnpike Road at the milestone on Brettle Lane, about, there's a milestone, you can see that there. So it goes down Derry Road, down this line, and joins back up again with the turnpike road. So it was nowhere near the promenade at that point. And this is very early 1830s. You know, right back 1770s, you could have imagined pack horses coming up. Here's the New Inn. So, they call it the old New Inn, but it was the New Inn once. It had a stable block. Look at this picture from above. Beautiful stable block. Now, there were men coming here in the 1820s. It's marked down in 1836 as being one of the first pubs, and it's probably older than that. So this would be, you come to the top of the hill, Derby Street, and you'd be knackered and you want to rest, you'd come here, would be Napoleonic soldiers in this pub. Found some kittens once in the back of here. Look at the way that's coming forward now. Now, they recently took the scaffolding down, and I did say to the guy when they were taking it down, I said, do you do realise that there's nothing holding that up? That inside it's just a shell. And you can see the back here, look how old this is. This would have been the coach house area, so the coaches would have passed under this archway. Look at that there. Casting some sand, that is, sand casting. Good old-fashioned cast. You can actually see the burr on the edge where it was cast in the sand. Beautiful. So this part of it's been broken down and rebuilt there at some point. Maybe that beam's original. That is beautiful. Lovely to see. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that. Amazing. Early 1830s, 1820s. Now, Bell Street used to carry on straight up. This used to run all the way to Rockmore. Now it's just a small street. Hall Street would have started here. Was once Church Lane. But by 1890 it became Hall Lane, or Hall Street. See a map of it here when it was Church Lane. Later the Marsh and Baxters, or the Marsh family, or the Baxters family took over and built the factory. We're going to do a full video on that, guys, including the pig tunnel, which is coming. But right here, there was a pub called the Bell. Now the Bell is, you can see a picture of it just about here. The Bell, guys, was an ancient pub. Probably, I believe, the earliest pub in the area. So just here, and if you look on this 1860 map view, you can see where it would have been. And on this picture from like 1924, I think, you can see it there, the building, as it looked on the map in 1860. Now, this is a horrific pub where they'd bring a bear. Now, the bear would have a muzzle on, and it would have its claws removed, and the dogs would be brought from all around the area to test against the bear. Now, the guy that bought the bear was called the Bear Herd, and in this particular case, he was kept in a pigsty at the back of the pub, and he was brought out to be baited. Absolutely disgusting behaviour, guys, really appalling. And these animals went through hell. But there's one case where a bear was being baited, not far away from here, and the rain the day before had loosened the clay on the ground, and they put the stake in, and not knowing the bear had loosened the stake, the bear then escaped, and rather than attacking these people that had been torturing him, he ran off to the pigsty where he'd been kept and hid. That to me shows how appalling this behaviour was, man. You know, these bears would paw, they'd only be able to paw and bear hug the dogs, you know, cripple the dogs. Most of the dogs would die. There was a well just there, where the white car is, just there was a well. And in about 1840, 2 men killed in that well. They drowned in it. Yeah, Mr. Meredith, a town surveyor, the first town surveyor of Brierley Hill, explains that one day his dad woke him up in the night that 2 men had died. He thought it was in their well, in the garden, but actually it was here at Bell Street. In the well, it was just there. 2 men had drowned. So it was really sad, guys, that the bears that were baited here, it was terrible. The bears didn't die. They were just took from town to town, and actually, you know, their lives were just pure misery, with dogs being chucked at them constantly to test their dogs. It was like a pride thing with the owners. The pit bulls were bred specially for baiting bulls. When the bulls were baited, they were eaten, like I said, the meat was sold in the pubs or given away with pickles to the revellers on the wake. Maybe that's where we get the Sunday roast from. I don't know, maybe not. It's one of these things that there was a woman that was married on the wake, and she said that she still has the tradition on Wake Sunday of eating roast beef 60 years after when she was married on Wake Sunday. But yeah, the pub was there, a very old pub, probably the oldest pub in the area. Another sad thing I've read so many sad things about the bear baiting, guys, and it really does shame me that it's part of our history, but it is. Up until 1835, it was a big part of our history. And to hide the bull baiting or to hide the blood sport, they turned it to cockerels in the end, and they carried on cockfighting for a long time. Even the aristocracy were involved, so it was disgusting. And then obviously they went to dogfighting, and people like Joe Mallon. You know, I know they're big names in the area, but I just disagree with the blood sports. But we must record it. So yeah, if a dog refused to fight, a dog turned tail on a bull or a bear, they'd throw it down an old pit alive. You know, that is just... For me, if I see an animal in need or injured, I will not rest or sleep until I know that animal is either A, put out of its misery, or B, treated. It's not in me. And the people of the time, there were people at the time that found it abhorrent, you know, and it was banned in the end, and rightly so. But the fact that they throw a live dog down a thing because it turned... And sometimes it wasn't their fault. If a dog was made lame by a bear or by a bull, they throw it down as a coward. A live animal starving to death down a pit because it's seen as a coward. Now, the man who does that's a coward. I'd throw them down the pit, but I'd get done, wouldn't I? So, yeah, this amazing building was here, guys. Probably the oldest pub in Brierley Hill, the Bell. Lots of bells, obviously called the Bell because of the church. 1750s, we can talk about that in a minute. Why the wake was here was because of the church. Now, originally, the church wall didn't have any entrances here. If you look at this map, you can see... I can imagine they didn't like having a pub next to the church, but it happened. 1750s, the church went in, 1765 was it? And after that, the pub came not long after, and they called it the Bell because, or maybe it was a house before it became a public house. They called it the Bell because of the church bells. This was not a way in. The only way in was the front. There was a way in well down the gully, which I'll show you. So basically, guys, as we're passing the church now, down the gully, and you can see it on the map, look, the little gap. All these beautiful... You can see the church from this lovely view of Marsh and Baxter's view with the church and all these beautiful graves. I don't know, do you want a video on the church as well? I don't know. We'll see. But you can see here that this is it. So this was original. 1765, this gap was in the wall. And whether these plates of iron have stood there all them years or not, I don't know, but they look amazing to me. When we made steel, look at that. That is proper iron plates, isn't it? Probably cast, and this is so worn away that is, you know, that's countless mourners stepped on there. And we're going to step into the church now. The beautiful St Michael's. It's had several phases in its life. Like I said, aerial view here from 1860. The place was called Chapel Hill, over the road, Chapel Hill, and was a chapel of ease to begin with, and then it became St Michael's. Eventually it became a proper church, but it was a chapel of ease to begin with. Several things have changed over the years. The main emphasis was coming up the front. You come up the promenade. Apparently in the early days of Brierley Hill, the promenade was an eyesore. It wasn't seen as anything good at all until they had the good idea of making it into like a posh area. Around 1870, they put that big house up, and as you can see here, it became this lovely area. Okay, so where we are now is the churchyard at St Michael's. Beautiful old church. Round about the mid-18th century, people in Brierley Hill were having to go to Cayford to worship. So, and because it was a boom town, certain people believed that it needed a church. It needed some guidance. It was going down the wrong tracks. There was a lot of criminals. And the Earl at the time, Earl John, or Viscount John, his second marriage was to a woman called Mary Carver. Now, this gets dark now because Mary Carver, or Mary Carver's family, owned slaves. They owned 3 plantations. I think one was New Clarendon, New Yarmouth, and I forget the third, guys, but I'll put them up on the screen for you now. 695 people they owned at £20 each. Now, I know these slaves got passed on to the next Earl, or the first Earl. The first earldom was in like the 1300s, got recreated for this guy in 1820s. Now, even though the slave trade was abolished during the 1820s, or the transatlantic slave trade, the ownership didn't stop. I think 1840s they started to cut it out. So this gentleman, the first Earl, did own slaves. And now, during the period of the building of this, some of the money would have kick-started, some of the money made in these sugar plantations or rum plantations or whatever they were making in these horrible establishments abroad was being poured into stuff like this. So this is a really expensive building behind us. Now, There was subscription entered into to build it, but I'm sure some of the money earned from these people, from these poor people, would have gone into this. I think the Industrial Revolution, there's some evidence that some of the canals, people were investing money. Now, often you don't invest money unless you've got money to lose. Now, with the slave trade, a lot of money was being made by a few people because they were exploiting people. Some say that we were slaves, our ancestors were slaves, that really what's the difference between a slave in the plantations and a slave in a coal mine? You're getting paid, yes, but the money is just subsistence living. It's barely enough to live, if that. It's absolutely horrific. It should never have happened. You know, in my eyes, we're all the same underneath, man. Love is the main key in the world, isn't it? We shouldn't be arguing. Religion, we shouldn't be arguing. I think it's a hard one. It's a hard one, isn't it? But I think we're all human and we just need to connect on that level. Well, anyway, there were slaves. The Earl of Dudley's owned slaves, 695 of them. And at the end of slavery, the first Earl in the 18-somethings, early 1800s, was actually compensated, man, which would have accounted to millions today. Compensated for losing these slaves. Absolutely abhorrent, really. But yeah, it's part of the Black Country history, which is a bit dark. Do you want to see me cover that? Let me know in the comments, guys. I know it's a dark part of the history, so is bull baiting, but it needs to be spoke about. One of the first curates here, the first curate actually, was called Mr. Moss, and he was famous for writing the Beggar's Petition. And he actually had an area on the church hill there, which he called his idyll. It was a small area where he planted, he enclosed it, he planted plants and trees, and he had a seat, and he had some verse on that seat. I'll put the verse up on the screen for you now. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Later on, another man called Akenhurst in 1701 would come here to teach, and he was a pretty well-off man. And at the end of his life, he left a will to buy land in Brockmore to build a church, or in Brierley Hill to build a church, £15, which then was a lot of money. Now, this was left in, just like the Carnegie Library, it was left in trust, i.e. the money from that would go towards educating the people. Now, somewhere along the line, the legacy got lost. For some time, one of the people that run the mines on the estate were paying to a school. But when that particular agent died, that payment stopped. And the land where this was bought for the people, during the times of minerals being mined in the 1800s and 1900s later on, would have been worth millions in minerals. So some greedy person somewhere along the line has realised that this guy has left it in, in his will to the people, to teach the people and to educate the people, the lower classes and the working classes. But it's been stolen from the working classes. Now, I think somebody did dispute it a few times during the 1800s, but they got nowhere with it. They hit dead ends. And that's often the way, isn't it? Mr. Carnegie gave a library to the people. Now it's being sold to the public sector for flats. And the people like me and you will never get to see those beautiful murals or windows inside. Yeah. So that's it, guys. I think I'll leave it there. As always, give us a thumbs up, man. It helps. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to miss things. I ain't going to get everything right, and the things I'm going to get wrong. Tell us your story in the comments, guys. Let us know what your history of Brierley is. Let us know your experiences of all the places we've been today. Some of them before your time, some of them before my time, some of them before 100 years' time, you know, they're very old. But a lot of them people will know, and a lot of them people will be saying what I've forgotten, I've not said. But mention it. Tell us in the comments what you think of Brierley Hill today, what you think of it in the past. Tell us your memories. Please give us a thumbs up, give us a share if you can, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, it does help. What do you want to see next? Marsh and baxters. I'm going to do a video on that. I might do one on the church itself, because there's a lot of history here that I've missed today. You can't get it all in. There's too much for one video. I've missed a lot today in Brierley Hill, as you probably know. I've just tried to get in some of the more important bits that I find interesting personally. The wakes and the bull baiting is absolutely disgusting, but it's part of our history. We need to speak about it. And yeah, it's a really windy day today. But yeah. I think I'll end with some drone footage, guys, and thank you for watching as always, man. Love it, love it, love it. Love doing this, guys. Love history, love the Black Country. Proud to be Black Country. Proud to be a diverse Black Country. Love it. See you on the next one.
And did those in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green, and was the Holy of burning gold. Bring me my